I'm Grant Gershon. I'm the Kiki and David Gindler Artistic Director of the LA Master Chorale, and I am joined by internationally renowned pianist, radio host, curator, advocate, all around amazing person, and our guest soloist on our next concert, Lara
So
Downes.
excited to be here. Yeah.
So I wondered, because people know you in so many different contexts, I
Yeah.
wondered if you might just share with us a little bit about your origin story, how you started in music, and what that journey was like.
Sure. I was born. I would have said until very recently that I started piano when I was 4, but I recently found a photo in my mom's things of me at the piano, and I'm not yet 2. So I'm not saying that I was playing, Beethoven, but I was clearly drawn to the instrument very early. And I honestly don't have any memories that predate the piano,
Yeah,
which I love.
yeah.
So that
Were your
been.
parents musicians?
They were musical. They weren't
Okay.
practicing
Yeah,
musicians.
yeah.
Yeah, my dad especially was a huge lover of music, and one of those early memories is just listening to music with him, listening to records. But it's really just been the central, the core of life. I have 2 sisters. They were also playing. It was very much a musical household, 3 pianos in the house. And at a certain point, so this was in San Francisco. That's where I grew up. And then we moved to Europe for sort of the my teens, really, were spent abroad studying there. So, 6 degrees of separation from
Yeah.
everybody, which was wonderful. And I think was also the beginning of my rebellion.
Okay.
Because by the time I had finished my immersive European education, I was like, yeah, but, right?
Yeah.
And sort of wanting to understand where I fit into the lineage as an American person, a person of color, a female person, all of the identity pieces, which just had been submerged for a long time. And I tell you this because I think that's the reason, that I'm here with you and Margaret Bonds and all of these composers, all this music that I care about so much. It really did start as a search for self, which I think we all have to some degree as musicians.
Yeah.
At some point, we start searching for ourselves in the music.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about Margaret Bonds? I mean, this extraordinary composer, and we're doing the magnificent Credo, and of course, you're also playing the spiritual suite, the piano solo,
right.
and just talk about who she was and what your connection is to her music.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you used the word extraordinary, and she really is. And I think that what's so fascinating to me about these figures in American music who have been, sort of in the shadows for a long time, is that in order to do that, you had to just be an extraordinary person, to just move outside of your time and place in your own imagination and take steps that nobody was helping you to take and make things that no one was asking you to make. Do you know what I mean? So Margaret Bonds was born in Chicago in, I'm bad with dates, but the 19 teens, and grew up in a very musical household, a very enlightened household. Her father was a physician and an activist. Her parents split when she was very young, so she grew up with her mom. And her mom's house in Chicago was kind of the meeting point for everyone who came through town. And this is, at the height of the Great Migration, so everyone's coming through town. So this was sort of a salon, and I think, you could stay there for a while if you needed to. And she was musical from the beginning as a child prodigy, as a pianist. At 22, she became the first Black soloist to play with Chicago Symphony Orchestra, and she was composing already, went to Northwestern University, and eventually made her way out here to LA towards the end of her life. Not a ton of music. She wrote a lot of songs, of course. One of the formative relationships in her life was a close friendship with Langston Hughes.
Yes.
And he got her to move to Harlem. And they worked together on a lot of songs, and those songs are so
just
extraordinary.
Yeah, they're amazing.
Yeah,
really jewels.
Yes, yeah. And I think, I guess I first encountered her music through one of the movements of the spiritual suite, which is Troubled Water, which is a piece I found many years ago. Didn't know at that time that it was part of a 3-movement suite. So she wrote those piano pieces and then all these songs, and the Credo, which is just, I think it's safe to say it's one of her more ambitious works.
Right. And of course, Credo means I believe. And I know that this is something that you have really taken on as a project. And I wondered if you could talk about that project and share with us a little bit about the Credo, the text itself, which is so amazing.
Well, it's so interesting. So she wrote this piece in the mid-60s, and her inspiration and her source material was the text by W.E.B. Du Bois, his prose poem called Credo, which he wrote in 1904. So to me, that in itself is so fascinating, right? Here are these two very distinct points in American history, and this expression of ideals of equality and freedom, first at the turn of the century, so close to the end of slavery and this vision of an equal society, and then of course in the 60s when everything is so heightened. So she wrote this piece for chorus, orchestra. Well, I guess the piano version came first.
I believe that's right. Yeah.
But then scored it for orchestra, and what a statement to make.
Yeah.
And that text, I don't know where it sits actually in sort of our modern culture. It's not something that I learned as a child. I don't think that kids learn it anymore. They used to. It used to be this very seminal text, and it's in its way, it's very much of its time. The language is very much of its time, and he's expressing ideas which to us maybe seem like we take them for granted, even though we shouldn't.
Maybe.
Right? But there's this one part of the text that I love so much because I think it's timeless. It's the part about I believe that all men should have the freedom to the freedom to vote.
To vote, yes.
To breathe, to stretch their arms, to choose their friends. All these that's extraordinary to me too. That in 1904, I was thinking about all of the manifestations of freedom. As the fullness of freedom for an individual. Anyway, so I wanted to capture this text, these ideas, and bring them into the present in a way that they really could reach young people. So I launched this initiative called I Believe. This was 2 years ago, I guess. And it was just sort of a national call to young people to write their own credos. What do you believe in? What are the things, the ideals that you just feel inside yourself, despite everything that is going on in the world, despite everything that is being sort of pushed onto you? Like, what is in here? So I've been taking this around the country for 2 years, and it is inspiring and motivating, energizing.
What I've seen of it online is just is so inspiring, and fascinating too, because that really is that's such a fundamental question,
right?
For people.
Yes, I think often we ask kids what they want to be when they grow up, but do we ask them who they are, what they believe in, what they see in the world around them?
Can I ask you what you believe?
Oh, I believe that our work is important. Everything that I've been experiencing, especially from this music that is kind of, going back 50 years and 100 years, and you look at these markers in our history and you understand that it's just cycles, and that in every time of our history, it actually is the artists who capture their time, but also project their vision outside of their time. You look at W.E.B. Du Bois, who's writing these words at a time when none of these things are true, but he's saying they can be true. And Margaret Bonds is saying these things can be true. And I think that's what we're doing now. So I didn't always believe that our work was as important as I know it to be.
Yeah, absolutely. We're sitting here at Disney Hall, the extraordinary space, and you're no stranger to this concert hall. And I wondered if you could maybe just talk a little bit about what it feels like to perform here or to be an audience here. What if there are things that you feel like set this space apart from other venues that you've performed in?
I'm especially thrilled that we are resurrecting this piece here. It was performed in 1972. Just a few weeks after she died. The LA Phil and David Mehta played not the full, some excerpts from the Credo. And just to think about that, to think about her not even getting to experience that, and to bring this back to this city. When she came here, she really embedded herself in the cultural life here in LA in an important way, an impactful way. She was teaching and working at the Inner City Cultural Center. So really, working with young people and trying to do something. And I wish she were here. I think she is here. it's really meaningful to me.
I really feel that as well. Yeah, I was curious, taking a piece that has been orchestrated, and you as a pianist are such an amazing colorist, and so I wonder if you take that into account, the orchestration and what it sounds like, the different kind of choirs of instruments that you can evoke.
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I mean, I guess what I love about the piano is that it is an orchestra, right? And I think you're right. I'm very attuned to color and to just like the nuances of sound. So I don't try to translate exactly. And it's funny, you know, I'm always borrowing from other buckets. I love, for example, transcribing songs for solo piano. I've done that a lot, and also, you know, having arrangements done of orchestral works. And I've learned by working with the composers themselves, like, let's let this be two separate things. And she was such a fine pianist that I think what she wrote for the piano is really what she wanted to hear from the piano.
And it's very pianistic, isn't it?
It really is.
It lies so beautifully and creatively.
Yeah. I mean, I might make some little like trombone sounds or something. But,
we'll keep an ear out for that. So this concert has music of Zanita Robles, of J.S. Bach, and Margaret Bonds. To me, it's a concert that really speaks about belief, about faith, about where music sits in the world that we live in now. And I wondered if you agree, first off, and if you might talk about what you hope the audience will take away from hearing this music.
But also not just where we are now. I think what the music accomplishes, you know, what happens when we put together Bach and Bonds is that we understand that wherever we are now is also where they were then, you know, at the core level.
Absolutely.
I remember when we were on Zoom and we were planning this program, and I said I'd like to play this piece by Bach, this his Sleepers Awake, which he wrote, you know, in a time of plague, using a hymn that was already 100 years older than, you know, that predated him by a century. It was written by this pastor of a small German town at a time when the plague was sweeping through the town and everyone was dying and it seemed like the world was ending. And he writes this hymn about gathering together and lifting, you know, your light. And how timely is that for us, you know? So I love this span of time and how it kind of pulls us together at its center.
Yeah, these kind of programs where there's music from different eras, different genres that casts kind of mutual illumination.
Yes. Yeah,
I think it's so inspiring and evocative. As well. Yeah. Well, Lara, thanks. I can hardly wait for April 6th at 2 p.m., April 6th at 2 p.m., and April 7th at 7 with the LA Master Chorale. We have soloists from the group Chloe Vaught and Jamal Moore joining us for the Credo. And you I think you're actually the first guest soloist pianist that we've ever had, particularly performing not only in collaboration with us, but as a featured soloist for the spiritual suite and Bach.
I'm honored.
Yeah, we're honored. So super looking forward.
Me too.
And thank you so much.
Thank you.
Cheers.